This is the story of a young man named Aaron Ralston, who is not only an experienced mountaineer, but also considers mountains and caves to be his second home. Climbing the towering peaks of mountains, exploring extremely thin and narrow passages that pass through them, and making videos of those adventures are actually his hobby and passion. One weekend, Aaron went hiking in the valleys of Canyonlands, a place he often visited for hiking. Canyonlands was a rugged desert where far and wide, there were only uneven mounds and rocky valleys. Along with that, there were extremely tight and narrow passages running between the mountains where a person could completely get lost. But Aaron loved exactly these kinds of places. He glanced briefly at his wristwatch and got busy doing what he loved most. Jumping and moving across the twisted paths spread inside the mountains, he kept moving forward quickly. After going a little further, he started descending into a narrow pass formed between two hills. That pass was quite deep and tight. He kicked a large rock stuck there to check whether it was moving or not, but the rock did not move even slightly. Now Aaron started climbing down while using that rock for support. But suddenly the rock slipped from its place, and he began falling into the crack along with it. Holding onto the wall of the pass with his hands, he somehow managed to stand on a rock below. However, along with him, that big rock also crushed his right hand and trapped it between the walls of the pass. Aaron groaned in pain. For a few moments his mind went completely numb. But then, thinking that at least his life had been saved, he took a breath of relief and tried to pull his hand out from under the rock. However, even after using all his strength, his hand would not come out of the rock. He realized that his hand was not going to come out so easily. Gritting his teeth, he tried with all his strength to move that massive rock. But he failed completely. That heavy rock did not even move from its place. Even then he did not give up. For a long time he kept struggling like this. But when the result was still 0, he became completely exhausted. His lips had dried up, and his throat had become like a desert. He suddenly stopped and quickly removed the bag hanging on his back. With his left hand, he pulled out a bottle of water from it and started drinking it rapidly. After that, he looked upward and began shouting loudly for help. But now he was stuck 65 feet below the mountain surface in a lonely, narrow passage where there was no one around to hear his cries. Aaron now understood that he was trapped in such a wilderness where no one would come to help him, because he had not told his parents or anyone else that he had come to Canyonlands. After that, he opened his bag with his left hand and took out all the items from it. Among those items, there was also a small pocket knife. With that small knife, Aaron started trying to break the rock from the side. But it was an extremely solid and strong rock. On top of that, Aaron's right hand was trapped inside the rock, and it was very difficult for him to work with his left hand. Even then, Aaron did not lose courage. He kept working continuously with great effort. Unfortunately, the knife slipped from his hand and fell down. Aaron tried his best to pick up the knife with his foot, but since he was hanging slightly above the surface, his foot could not reach the knife lying below. Somehow he managed to trap a piece of wood between his feet and finally succeeded in lifting the knife. Then he once again started cutting the heavy rock. As time passed, night arrived. While cutting the rock, the tip of Aaron's knife also wore down. But despite so much effort, that hard rock only got a few scratches and nothing more. Aaron was now completely exhausted from thirst and fatigue. At exactly 12 o'clock, he drank a few sips of water and saved the rest for later. Because of the exhaustion, he started feeling sleepy. But he was hanging slightly above the ground and standing with great difficulty while keeping one foot on a rock. In such a situation, he could not even rest properly. Just then he noticed a pointed rock above him. An idea came to Aaron. He took out his climbing rope and threw it upward, somehow hooking it onto that pointed rock. Then he attached the rope to his harness belt. This gave his body some support, and he started resting while hanging on the rope. After resting for about half an hour, he once again began trying to break the rock with the knife. He continued his efforts until morning, but unfortunately he only faced failure. He had no idea how he would free his hand from that cruel rock and escape, while nearly 24 hours had already passed since he had been trapped in that narrow pass. He could not think of any way to get out. Now he understood that this might be the end of his life's journey. He turned on his camera and started recording his current situation. He said that he had been trapped there for the past 24 hours and no one knew that he was there. As for food, he only had 2 packets of burritos left, and the water was less than half a bottle. Suddenly some dust fell on him from above. He felt that someone might be on the mountain's surface above. Quickly he lifted his face and started shouting loudly for help. However, no reply came from above. Aaron became disappointed and picked up his camera to watch the footage he had just recorded. In the video he saw that no dust had actually fallen on him from above. It had only been his illusion. Because of hunger and thirst he had started hallucinating. He calmed himself and gathered courage in his heart that he must not lose hope under any circumstances. After a few hours, night fell again. At night, the desert became extremely cold. The previous night, Aaron had somehow managed to tolerate the cold, but now he needed to find some way to protect himself. He thought of an idea. He wrapped the climbing ropes he had brought around his neck, hands, and legs like clothes. Then he covered his head with the bag's cover. This gave Aaron a little warmth. That small feeling of warmth brought a smile to his face, even in such a difficult moment. Now Aaron felt extremely hungry. He opened one packet of burrito and started eating it with great interest. While eating, he thought that if he were at home at this moment, he would probably be enjoying a party with cold beer and different delicious dishes. But unfortunately, he had to be satisfied with eating only half a burrito. He saved the remaining half for later. In this way, the night passed again. Aaron had now spent 2 days trapped in that rock, and today was the 3rd day. Now Aaron thought of a new trick to lift the rock. He took a rope and tied it around the rock in which his hand was trapped. After that, he passed the other end of the rope through the hook of the rope hanging above, which he had fixed on a rock the previous night. Then Aaron started pulling the other end of the rope with all the strength of his hands and legs. In fact, the hook was working like a pulley, which is used to lift heavy objects. But despite all the attempts, that stubborn rock did not move even a little. This made Aaron extremely disappointed. While recording in the camera, he said that he now only had about 150 milliliters of water left, which would allow him to survive only until the next night with great difficulty. During this time, whenever he needed to urinate, he did it in his camel bag so that if his water finished, he could drink it to stay alive. Along with that, Aaron only received sunlight for about 15 minutes in the morning, during which he warmed his cold body and felt a great sense of comfort. Within these 3 days, completely exhausted by hunger and thirst, Aaron finally decided that he would cut off his trapped hand. Even if he lost his hand, at least his life would be saved. But unfortunately, by now the edge of that knife had completely worn out, because of which even his thin skin was not being cut by the knife. Aaron felt very disappointed. In this way, another day ended and night arrived. Aaron started remembering his past days very intensely, his family, his girlfriend, and all his friends. Just then, loud thunder started roaring in the sky above, and lightning flashed again and again. Soon after that, suddenly heavy rain began pouring down. Aaron jumped with happiness. He opened his mouth and quickly started drinking the raindrops to moisten his completely dry throat, and at the same time, he also filled his empty bottle with rainwater. The rain was so intense and heavy that water even started filling the narrow canyon in which Aaron was trapped. The level of water kept rising rapidly, and a moment came when Aaron started drowning in that water. His hand was trapped under the rock, so he could not even swim. Aaron began struggling desperately to come out of the water. He used all his strength to lift the rock. Now, because inside water gravity becomes less, the weight of objects also reduces. So after some struggle, Aaron managed to free his hand from the rock and came out of the water. After that, he ran through those narrow passages and reached straight to his car. He started the car and drove out of Canyonlands. Now his happiness had no limits. But the very next moment it felt as if the ground slipped from beneath his feet when he realized that all of this was actually a terrible dream, an illusion created by his mind. In reality, because of hunger and thirst, Aaron had started having hallucinations. Because of this, he was seeing scenes in front of him that were not even there in reality. When Aaron realized that he was still trapped in the same mountain canyon, he started crying and screaming loudly. In this way, that night also passed. Today was the 5th day since Aaron had been trapped there. His behavior had started changing very rapidly. It seemed as if madness had begun taking over him. Sometimes he started talking to himself, and sometimes he turned on his camera and started recording his current situation like a reporter. After that, Aaron became extremely emotional. He said to his parents through the camera that he loved them very much and apologized to them for coming here without informing them. Aaron was recording all this because his own hopes had now completely broken. Now he did not even have a single drop of water left, nor any food. Because of hunger and thirst, he had become completely miserable. And this heavy rock, which he could not even move, had completely imprisoned Aaron's life in that mountain canyon. Aaron had become extremely frustrated. Now Aaron wanted to free that hand from the rock. But unfortunately, the bone of his hand prevented the knife from passing through. It was impossible to cut the bone of the hand with that small knife. Aaron pulled the knife out. In this way, another day passed. Because of thirst, Aaron now felt as if his life was slipping away. Helplessly, he picked up his camel bag in which he had stored his urine, and in complete helplessness, he started drinking it. Aaron had now become extremely weak. With great disappointment, he said that perhaps this rock had been waiting for him since the day he was born, and maybe this was his destiny. Then with the tip of the knife, he wrote, "Rest in peace," on a rock, and also wrote his date of birth and death along with his name below it. Because now he had completely believed that he could never return from here alive. Now he started replaying his life in his thoughts, just like people often do when they are about to die, what he lost, what he gained, and what he should not have done. Then, with a broken heart and in a completely helpless state, he fell asleep right there. The next morning, which was the 6th day, when Aaron was hanging between his last breaths and slightly regained consciousness, he saw some visions. In that vision, he saw a small child who was his future son, and he was playing lovingly with that child. As soon as he saw that vision, a powerful strength awakened inside him, and he became filled with determination. He decided that no matter what happened, he would get out of there. Using the rock as support, he broke the bone of his trapped hand and endured that unbearable pain. Then he cut the broken part of his hand with the knife and separated it from his body. In this way, after sacrificing his hand, Aaron finally freed himself from that cruel rock on the 6th day. Then he wrapped his cut hand with cloth from his bag. Before leaving the canyon, he even took a photo of his severed hand that was still trapped under the rock. After that, struggling with great difficulty, he managed to come out of that mountain canyon. Outside, bright sunlight was shining beautifully, and after 6 days of darkness, seeing the open sky made Aaron bloom with happiness just like the sunlight. Using his rope, he descended from the mountain cliff down to the ground. Suddenly, he saw that a little dirty water had collected at one place. Without thinking for a moment, he immediately jumped face first into that water. Completely desperate with thirst, Aaron kept drinking that dirty water continuously. After quenching his thirst, he started moving forward with his stumbling steps. Even though he was in extreme pain, he kept moving forward in that harsh desert. Suddenly, he saw a man at some distance who had come there for hiking along with his wife and child. Aaron shouted loudly to call them. At first, no sound even came out of his throat, but when he tried again, his voice finally reached their ears. Those people immediately ran towards Aaron. Aaron told them his painful story and also drank a lot of water from them. Aaron urgently needed a medical team, but none of their phones had network to call for help. So that man immediately sent his wife and child ahead in search of mobile network so that they could call for help for Aaron. After some time, suddenly a helicopter was seen flying in the air. That helicopter belonged to the Canyonlands security team, whom the man's wife had called. The security team quickly placed Aaron into the helicopter and immediately flew towards the hospital. In this way, defeating death, Aaron managed to escape alive from that harsh desert. After a few days, Aaron completely recovered. Although he had lost one of his hands forever, he was happy that his life had been saved. A few years later, he even got married, and today he also has a son. Aaron had seen death extremely closely during those 6 days, but even after that, he did not give up his passion. He still continues climbing. But now, wherever he goes, he always leaves notes for his parents or friends telling them where he is going. From this story, we learn a lesson that no matter what the situation is, we should never lose our courage and determination.